Thanks for joining us. Tonight's our first in a series of interviews with amazing practice members who are having really cool and extraordinary experiences in their life. Tonight we're joined by Angie Matson, who's a really cool life coach. What's your website, by the way?
MatsonBusiness.com.
MatsonBusiness.com. So, how long have you been coming in for care now?
Since mid-January, I think.
Yeah, mid-January. And what was it that originally brought you in? What was it that stirred inside of you that said, okay, cool, I'm going to make some changes?
I have had chronic back pain for years. Part of it was working in a veterinary clinic and lifting too many dogs. Part of it was hereditary. And part of it was just inattention to my body. Just inattention to my body.
Cool, so you had some back pain, it was part of your job, part hereditary, part not paying attention, right? And as you know, one of the things we always talk about is paying attention. So what were some of the changes that you noticed when you were first coming in? What were some of the basic changes that you started to notice?
I noticed a slight reduction in my back pain, but more than anything, I noticed a difference in how I was breathing. And how I just was noticing my body. I guess it was just body awareness really increased.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's cool. And then as you've progressed through care, you've been coming in since January, what's changed then? You shared some things with me tonight that were so, made my heart sing. In our re-exam, and that's why it prompted me to want to do this. Can you share a bit more about that in your own words?
Sure. The remarkable things for me have been just a real shift in how I feel, like literally how my spirit feels. I told you when we were talking that when we first came in, I was not depressed. I wouldn't say that I was depressed, but I was feeling very heavy about life, about my spirit, about my body. I was just very heavy, and totally. My spirit felt like that big.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, and now, over the past couple of months, my spirit feels this big.
Wow.
I mean, it feels bigger probably than we can put it in the camera, literally.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's amazing because, when we talk about wellness and health and all that, we get stuck on these things like, back pain or anti-aging or these little things that we look at through like the medical model, for instance, where we want to remove symptoms, and if you don't have symptoms, you feel pain. And what's interesting is you're saying you've had some improvement in your low back, and you've had some improvement in your awareness, and your spirit feels this big. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And we've had some conversations. You're obviously an outdoors person. You love to kayak and hike and play outside. And you'd notice some changes in your hiking, correct? So your back's feeling a little
Absolutely,
better.
yeah. I would, by the end of a hike, just be feeling kind of hunched over and full of pain, and it was a less pleasurable experience. And I've been out 3 or 4 times in the last month and have not had that experience at all. I've been very energetic. In fact, I got on the treadmill the other day and just kicked it out.
Yes, that was cool. I
yeah.
saw that on Facebook. Now, had you been previously to a chiropractor or somebody in my line of work previously?
I had only for 5 or 6 treatments.
Okay. And it was the more traditional?
It was much more traditional.
Snap, twist, pop.
She did a little bit of snapping and cracking and popping.
Sure.
And she did a lot of with the little vibration thing.
Sure.
And a lot of, here, get on these supplements. And I was like, this just really is not what I'm looking for.
Okay, cool. And so what was different? Obviously, for people who are listening in, our practice is very different than traditional chiropractic. It utilizes network spinal analysis, which of course is an exceptionally gentle technique, in conjunction with somato-respiratory integration. What was your experience with the technique, in terms of it? Was it gentle? What did you experience with the technique that was different from other things that you experienced?
Well, there's no popping and cracking at all, unless your body naturally, sometimes I would move and something would go pop, and I would be like, oh, that feels better. It just sort of happens naturally.
It's nice that way.
It is. It's just a lot of really gentle touching here and there, and a lot of emphasis on paying attention to your breath.
What did you notice with the somato-respiratory integration? Because you obviously came to one of our workshops that we had in-house. And for me personally, the somato-respiratory integration, I mean, for my life, just as a human being, has been one of the most profound things I've integrated into my life. It's helped me so much. So we love to share that with people. What was your experience with it?
My experience my whole life with breathing has been, I don't like it. I told my mother when I was 4 or 5 years old that I was tired of breathing. It was just a struggle for me. Cause,
who has time to breathe?
Yeah, it's hard and I don't like it. And,
right.
I've always felt like I've had this big elephant sitting on my chest. And I don't feel that anymore. I take really deep, full body breaths now. And I'm very aware of when I hold my breath, which I still do too much, but much less than before.
The power of the breath is amazing. It's interesting too, just on the subject, but off the subject, in most of the great sacred traditions in the world, the translation of Holy Spirit in the Greek translation of the New Testament was pneumos, which of course was the Greek word for breath.
Right.
In Chinese medicine, qi is the word for air. Prana in the yogic tradition has this strong correlation with breath. In Hawaii, I think we talked about this, if you're not from Hawaii, right, so that would be me, you go and you're a haole, so I guess that's someone who's without breath. So there's some connection to all these sacred traditions, these sacred healing traditions, and the power of the breath. In fact, most awareness tools, be it yoga, qigong, tai chi, meditation, there's some relationship to that. So, well, that's really cool. Now, you obviously work with people helping make their lives better, their businesses better, creating systems that create just more juice for them in their business and their life. How have you felt changes in how you show up for your work and for the people that are in front of you?
Well, like I told you when we were talking before, I'm very, very aware now that when I'm working with people, things just sort of come out of my mouth, ideas, solutions, insights that neither one of us sort of expected to happen. They sort of look at me and they're like, well, how did you know that? I don't know. It just...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, and what Angie's talking about, is so consistent with our research and network that not only do you get some great physical relief, but there's this expansion into these greater levels of awareness and how we show up in our life. And that's what's really cool. You reminded me of Gay Hendricks, who we're obviously a fan of. And Gay and Katie Hendricks. Gay Hendricks was a psychologist from Stanford University, and he wrote this great book, which I recommend to anyone, called The Great Leap. And in it he talks about, that really there's this, most of us put these upper limits on ourselves. And in my work, I really believe that a lot of these upper limits, be they physical, mental, emotional, the limits that we allow for ourselves and how much we can experience in terms of, how we show up in our work, intimacy, financial abundance, whatever realm it is in our life. And most of these things are hardwired into our brains early on by age 3. And so a lot of us, without tools, tend to stay below in this zone of comfort, where we're comfortable, even though that's not where we're fully human and fully alive.
We're not really comfortable.
No, and we're not really comfortable.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, to me, seems like you move past those upper limits into that zone of genius, so that when you're working with clients, the natural essence of your genius shows up.
Yeah.
And that we all have that.
Yeah.
And when our brain and our nervous system aren't bogged down by years of physical, emotional, and chemical stress, we're just better. We're in the flow of life. Well, you're a kayaker, right?
Yes.
So you're paddling downstream instead of upstream, right?
Right.
So, well, that's cool. Anything else that you would share for anyone, or for yourself, or any intention you have?
I will just say that it's hard to talk about what it is that you do and who you are, because just calling you a chiropractor is not, you're not just a chiropractor.